I am increasingly optimistic that we can have some historic solutions in Syria that have eluded us for years if we play our cards right. I see a way forward now that really, quite frankly, is historic. Historic security for Turkey, historic security for the Kurds, a plan to keep ISIS down and out forever, and a chance to keep the oil fields in the hands of our allies, not our enemies.
That's Senator Lindsey Graham with a pretty stunning reversal this morning when he was on Sunday Morning Futures. The senator, as you know, has been a harsh critic of the president's decision to pull our troops from northern Syria. Well, now he says the White House does have a plan that he says will satisfy all sides. As you heard, it will include a safe zone for the Kurds in northern Syria and setting up a joint venture with the Kurds over the oil fields in the region. This, though, as the ceasefire there is set to elapse day after tomorrow. And Turkish President Erdogan vows to continue his military attack against the Kurds if they do not pull back. So what could happen? There's Republican Congressman from Florida, Michael Waltz, member of the House Armed Services Committee, who, as I noted, is the first Green Beret elected to Congress. Congressman, of course, thank you for your service to our nation. You have been in the White House meetings. Do you think Erdogan's invasion can be curbed? I mean, what is going to happen on Tuesday?
Well, I spoke with Senator Graham this morning as well, and late last week, Secretary of Defense Esper, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, and also spoken with the White House. I think the Vice President, National Security Advisor O'Brien, Secretary of State Pompeo deserve to be commended for stopping through diplomacy the Kurdish advance into Syria and further into Kurdish territory. But I am still very dubious. I do not trust Erdogan, to be candid. And I think we have to ensure that he not only goes to a permanent ceasefire, but pulls back his forces to allow some space for the Kurds. We cannot allow them to ethnically cleanse that area. And the main piece, and I think this is where Senator Graham is we have to maintain that relationship with the Kurds on the ground. The thing I'm worried about, Sean, is if we pull out completely of northern Syria, then we also cede the airspace. And why that's so important is we have to keep the focus on ISIS. We cannot allow ISIS 2.0 to return. And if we cede control of the airspace to the Russians and to the Syrians, even if we're trying to conduct missions from neighboring Iraq to still go after ISIS, we have to fight back through that airspace. And that's what's so critical to me, is keeping focus on ISIS, not allowing ISIS to return, not allowing an ISIS 2.0, and keeping a foot on the neck of their leadership.
Well, the Russians are, already on the ground there, and Assad is taking over some of that territory. I mean, they won. So how do we deal with that in terms of the airspace and the movements of the fact that Putin's
if you look at where ISIS is actually operating, where a lot of their leadership is along that border region, along the Iraq-Syria border region. So that's the area that I'm very focused on. The detention camps are also something to worry about. The Pentagon believes that most of those fighters are still detained. We have seen some escapes, but that most of them are still detained, and they are still in communication with the Kurds guarding those camps. So maintaining that relationship going forward, staying focused on ISIS. If we can get to a demilitarized zone and Erdogan will listen and be a responsible ally, that would be a huge step. That's where we have to stay going forward. Sean, I think the big loser here is the isolationist camp that just believes we can follow the example of Obama, who just pulled the troops out of Iraq earlier this decade and led to ISIS in the first place. The United States has to lead. The United States has to be on offense against terrorism. We cannot just pull our troops home and not expect terrorism to follow us as well. And I think we've seen that play out over the last week.
Also, at the very beginning, you said, I do not trust Erdogan. I mean, look at this guy. They're NATO ally, supposedly.
Yeah.
Is that just a name only? I mean, look, they went out and bought the Russian 400 missile system. He's defying us time after time. You came out of a meeting at the White House saying that he betrayed this country again. Is it time that he why don't they kick NATO, Turkey out of NATO? We've got our nuclear weapons there. I mean, he's not a trustworthy partner.
I draw a distinction between Turkey as a historic ally and the Turkish army who I've worked with and many of my colleagues in the military have worked with over the years, and Erdogan and his regime. So I plan to work with Liz Cheney, my colleague in the House of Representatives, and Senator Graham to move the sanctions package forward that will sanction Erdogan and his inner circle because we need to keep that leverage on his behavior. And I draw a big distinction. If Turkey is kicked out of or withdraws from NATO, that is a huge win for Putin. We cannot allow that to happen, and we have to draw the distinction between Turkey as an ally, as a country, and the Turkish people, and Erdogan and his regime.
And quickly, that legislation targeting Erdogan himself, will it stop arms sales to Turkey? What else will it do? And do you expect that to hit the floor this week?
That's right. Well, I expect it to move to the floor this week. We're pushing hard on it, and it would target arms sales as well.
Great. Congressman Michael Waltz, again, thank you for your service and your insight and the action that you are taking on behalf of the Kurdish people in Congress.
We have to stand with them, Sean.